this is Thoughts with a Therapist. My name is Christine, and today's topic is finding a therapist. I want to go over a couple of terms you might encounter when you're looking for a therapist. I'm also going to talk about the financial aspect of finding a therapist, and also what type of therapist to look for that is going to meet your needs for your life situation. When people are looking for a therapist, they can have different reactions to this process. Some people are really excited because they're looking for a therapist who's going to help them learn a little bit more about themselves. They're excited to do that work. Other people are looking for a therapist and they're kind of dreading it. They are nervous, they're scared, they're overwhelmed by the idea of looking for a therapist and getting into some heavy topics. And some of you may have already seen a therapist, may have already seen a couple of therapists, and are feeling burnt out and just not looking forward to finding another therapist and starting all over again. Some of you might be really nervous or scared about meeting with a therapist because, let's face it, this process is a little awkward. You're going to a complete stranger and you're talking to them about really vulnerable, intimate topics about your life. It is very normal and expected to feel nervous about that, to feel awkward, to feel uncomfortable. It's important to find a therapist that you feel safe with and that you can build trust with. Let's talk about some of the logistics when it comes to finding a therapist. First of all, where do you find therapists? There are some really great places where you can start. One of the places that I recommend is psychologytoday.com. This site is a great place to start. On this site, you can look up therapists that are in your area. You can also search by specific words. So maybe you're looking for a male therapist, maybe you're looking for a female therapist, maybe you're looking for a therapist that specializes in anxiety, in depression, in PTSD, different types of physical or emotional or sexual trauma. Maybe you are looking for a therapist that does individual work, that does couple work, or does family work, or works with children. Now, there is also just good old Google searches. You can Google find a therapist near me, find a mental health therapist near me, and it will show you therapists that are in your area. Some therapists have their own websites. Some you might also find on Yelp. Yelp is another place where you can look up therapists, and sometimes these therapists will have their own clients who leave them reviews, and that might be a good insight for you to see what type of therapist they are. We also have different ways of being seen. You might see the word telehealth in bios or on different websites. What that means is they provide you services through video or phone sessions. Some people might feel a little uncomfortable with it, but the good thing is that therapists are required to use platforms that are HIPAA compliant. What that means is that they're making sure they're using a virtual platform that makes sure that your information is safe and that it will not be shared with anyone else. And of course, therapists see clients in the very traditional way of in person. This is something for you to consider. It's important that you ask yourself, how do I want to be seen? What is the most convenient, most beneficial way for me? If you feel that it's necessary or more beneficial for you to be seen in person, then look for a therapist who does offer in-person sessions. If you feel that it would be more convenient for you because it would work better for your schedule, or even for some people, they love the idea of not having travel time. It saves them on other things they have to do around the house, or saves them on the amount of time they would need someone looking after their child or children. And they might choose to be seen instead virtually by a therapist. Now, moving on from how you want to be seen, we need to consider one really important thing, which is the financial aspect of seeing a therapist. There are options for you depending on your income or your household income. Some of the things you might want to look for or look out for if you are maybe struggling a little bit with your finances is a therapist who provides or offers what is called a sliding scale. What that means is that they offer different rates for different people depending on their financial circumstances. Another option to help assist you in payment is also finding out if these therapists that you are finding accept insurance, and specifically your type of insurance provider. Sometimes a therapist will know if your insurance will cover for their services. Other times it's actually best to call your own individual insurance provider and ask them what type of services they cover for mental health. Another thing to consider is depending on where you go, you will find different price ranges. If you find a therapist who works at a private practice, you're typically going to find pricing that is in the mid to high range. This is where a licensed therapist has their own business and they set their pricing. And at some of these private practices, they do employ associates who are going to charge a little bit less than the licensed therapist. You also have the option of going to a nonprofit agency. They will have a range of a little bit more lower to mid price. Typically, you will be able to see that they are nonprofit if you look at their agency website. Two options that are more on the lower end for the price range are Department of Mental Health Agency or DMH agency. These types of agencies will provide much lower prices for their services. You will need to qualify to receive these services at a DMH agency. Now, if you are a parent looking for a therapist for your child, your teen, you can always ask the school or the district to see if they provide any mental health services for students who are enrolled in their district. If you are a college student, most colleges offer a psychology department where you can talk to a counselor and it'll be a lot cheaper. Some of the questions you might consider asking is, 1, how much is the cost for your services? Some therapists do have differing prices for the types of services they provide. Some therapists charge different prices depending if they're seeing an individual, family, or a child. Another question might be, when do they actually offer sessions? So if you're looking for a therapist who does morning sessions, afternoon sessions, or evening sessions, it might be useful to know what is their availability. You can also ask them questions about the type of information that they require from you. An intake form is a document that a therapist will provide for you that you will fill out, and it has a lot of information on there. 1, it talks about your rights. What are the things that are protected in your therapy sessions? What are the limits to some of those things? Because as therapists, we are mandated reporters, which means there are certain pieces of information that by law we have to report. So that piece of paper does give you information about your rights as a client. It talks about the risks and the benefits of therapy. It talks about the pricing, any sort of cancellation policies they might have. And it also asks you typically to fill out basic information like your name, your age, why you're coming into therapy, what's some of your history. And the most important thing is that it's having you sign to consent for treatment. It's basically saying, I am agreeing to being in session, in treatment with you, the therapist. This is really important because a therapist can only see you if you provide them written consent that you are wanting to engage in treatment with them. I would recommend asking if therapist that you have found is willing to give or does offer 15-minute consultations so that it can give you a better idea if this is the therapist that you want to go with. These are really great when therapists do provide them because it allows you to ask some of these questions that you need answers to, but it also allows you to get a little bit of a feel of the type of person. Maybe in that phone call, you sense that, I don't like this person, they seem odd, or they seem whatever it is that you don't like, or it might be the opposite. You might talk to them and have a really good conversation with them, feel really good with them, and feel more confident about seeing them. There are some therapists out there that just do a lot of listening, kind of the traditional, what you would imagine of sitting back and just allowing you to talk. And for some people, that's exactly what they need. They just need a space for them to vent and say what's on their mind, say what they're going through. Other people are looking for a therapist who's going to ask more questions, who's going to help guide you a little bit more. And some individuals are looking for a therapist that can provide a little bit more direct guidance. Ultimately, this is about you, what it is that you're going to get out of it. So ask yourself, what kind of therapist do I want? Do I want one that's going to sit and listen to me, consistently for most of the session? Do I want one that's going to ask me questions and kind of push me? Do I want someone that's going to help me create a really solid plan to figure out this problem that I'm having? And once you figure that out, you can ask them, or you can tell them, I'm looking for a therapist who can do this for me, who can provide this for me. Then that might give them an opportunity to say, oh yeah, I can definitely provide that for you, or that's the type of therapist I am, that's my style. Or they can say, you know what, I actually don't do that kind of therapy, or I don't really have that style. So let's talk about the different titles you might see when you are looking for a therapist. You might stumble upon a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Now, sometimes these get mixed up. A psychiatrist is someone who can prescribe you drugs for a mental illness. A psychologist cannot. Another title you might come across is a licensed professional counselor, a licensed mental health counselor, licensed clinical social worker, or a licensed marriage and family therapist. There are a lot of licensed therapists out there, which are great. But I also want to encourage you guys to consider seeing associates, people who are working towards their licensure. Just because they are working towards their licensure does not mean that they are not good quality therapists. Now, in my experience, I have met licensed therapists that are not the greatest, and I've also met associate therapists that are not the greatest. So just because you have a title doesn't mean you're better than the other person who does not have that licensed title. And actually, one of the perks is that sometimes when you're seeing associate, they're a little bit more affordable, and hopefully you're still getting good quality treatment. When I have individuals reach out to me to look for treatment, I do like to mention that it is like window shopping. Some people you might feel really comfortable with right off the bat, and your personalities might mix well. And then you might find other therapists that you talk with them or you meet with them and it just doesn't feel right. You don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, you don't feel like you can talk to them. That is okay. It is your money, it is your time, and it is, again, for you. So it's really important that when you are searching for a therapist, you choose a therapist that is best for you. And I understand that some people feel bad because it may seem like a form of rejection, but this is about you, not the therapist. The therapist is going to do their job, and they have their own style, their own way of doing therapy. And if that doesn't work for you, then they're not the therapist for you. It's nothing personal, it's just not what you need right now. So give yourself the permission to move on to someone else if you just don't feel right with this therapist. This process of looking for a therapist and starting treatment, this is not an easy thing to do. You are taking a step for yourself. You are doing something for your relationship, for your family, for your child that is amazing. And although therapy can be very difficult at times because we're talking about really difficult and sensitive things, it can be such a huge benefit. As you're looking for a therapist and maybe you're feeling tired, remind yourself, I am doing something that's really good for me. You are prioritizing yourself by going to therapy, and that is such a great decision to make. I hope this information can assist you in making the decision to see a therapist and possibly reduce some of the anxiety or stress of what do I look for, what do I ask. If you do have any other questions about finding a therapist that I did not answer in this video, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I will try to give you the best answer I can. If there is a topic that you would like me to make a video of, please go ahead and also leave a comment down below. If you'd like to support me, you can give this video a thumbs up, you can subscribe, you can share it with someone you think might benefit from this information. I hope you're having an awesome day. If you're not, I hope it gets better for you. I will see you next time. Bye.